I will expose you to the law. I will show you the kind of man you have against you. I don't know whether this murder charge is a trick or not. I don't fully believe Jack Burke is dead. But regardless, I will bring you down, Biff Farnham. Not out of revenge for what you did to me, but to save a woman whom you know. I will do it, damn you, even if it costs me my life. The sheriff's firm hand fell upon his shoulder, the burly body standing between them. You're all right, Hayes said calmly, his eyes pleasantly interested. You've been honest with me, young man, and I'll be honest with you. You can count on that. They'll give you an opportunity down at the jail to settle your dispute with Farnham. Carlton, his anger fading as quickly as it had come, ran one hand across his face, the true danger of his current situation suddenly rushing back to mind. Where do you plan to take us? He asked. San Juan. Right away? Well, as soon as we can get you back to where the horses are, over there. You promise us protection from that independence group? The sheriff nodded decisively. I haven't lost a single prisoner to a mob, he confidently replied. I think there will be one hell of a fight before I do now. However, you don't need to worry, young man. On second thought, I'll have the horses brought over here and we'll go down this trail. Carlton glanced around at the faces of Hicks and the Swede. There was no help coming from either, but he had already made a definite decision for himself. Very well, he said calmly. I'll go with you quietly, Sheriff, but I don't need any handcuffs. Never use 'em, and Hayes affectionately patted his gun. I think this weapon will do the job just fine if any misunderstandings should arise between us going down. However, I'll ask you to discard your weapons for the sake of peace. Without a word, the engineer unbuckled his belt, tossed it over to Hicks, and then slowly turned his body around to prove he was completely unarmed. Then he smiled and extended his hand. The sheriff shook it warmly. There should be no hard feelings between us, Hayes, he said pleasantly. You're only doing your sworn duty, I understand that. But there's something suspicious about this whole affair. All I ask for is a fair deal. And you can bet you'll get it, Mr. Carlton, or Sam Hayes will find out why. This independence group is not favored by me, and if the whole issue turns out to be nothing more than a mining dispute, the jury won't be too hard on you. That's how I see it, based on what little I know. He looked around keenly, trying to get a better idea of their immediate surroundings. Maybe you and Swanson should head back to the cabin, where I can easily keep an eye on you, while I send for the horses. Farnham, climb back on top of the garbage heap there, and give those guys the signal to come on. The gambler took off his hat, casually running one hand through his hair, his thin lips slightly parted to reveal his white teeth. I don't think we're quite finished yet, Mr. Sheriff, he said sarcastically. I'm not too concerned about your sudden sympathy for this guy, or your desire to protect him, but I feel compelled to insist on receiving everything the law allows me in this game we're playing. There's another warrant in your pocket for Carlton. By golly, yes, I totally forgot about it, fumbling with his papers. Well, I hadn't. It's a matter of personal importance to me, the voice taking on a lazy, insolent drawl. Of course, the guy is definitely under arrest, but the murder business is just a part of it. I want my wife. Carlton started moving forward, crouching as if he would pounce directly at the other guy's throat. Your wife? He exclaimed angrily, his voice choked. Your wife? You filed a warrant against me because of your wife? Something like that, I believe, gazing at him insolently. Kidnapping, I think the lawyers call it, and I notice you've got the lady hidden away back there now. He pointed across the other guy's shoulder. Caught red-handed. Oh, you're quite the preacher of morals, but this time I've got you dead to rights. Carlton stood motionless, his face pale, his lips pressed together, his gray eyes burning, never wavering from that mocking face. With all his willpower, he fought back the initial urge to strangle the man, to crush him into a shapeless pulp. For one intense moment his mind became chaotic, his blood pulsing with fire. Killing would bring joy, an indescribable relief. Farnham sensed the impulse and stepped back, not recoiling, but preparing for the struggle. But the engineer regained control just in time. Hayes, he exclaimed hoarsely, let the lady decide this. If she says no, then by God, I'll fight you all alone before he ever lays a hand on her." Old Bill Hicks was beside him in a single stride, his face blazing. "I'll be damned if you will," he growled angrily. "I'm in on this deal, law or no law. The whole damn thing is a bluff, and I won't stand for it any longer. You step back there, Sam Hayes, or else Gulpin County will be looking for another sheriff. I've had enough patience in this game." Carlton grabbed the old man's raised arm, spinning him around. "No," he said almost tiredly. "It's not going to be a fight yet. Let her decide between us." She was already approaching, walking alone directly across the open space towards them. The bewildered men watched her, noticing the pale face, made more noticeable by its frame of dark, uncovered hair, the strong feminine chin, the tightly pressed lips, the determined, unwavering eyes. She walked confidently and firmly forward, her head held high, a regal dignity in her posture that couldn't be ignored. If she saw either Carlton or Farnham in that group, she gave no indication, never stopping until she stood directly in front of Sam Hayes. Unconsciously, the sheriff took off his hat and twirled it in his hands. "Is it true," she asked, her voice filled with suppressed emotion, "that you have a warrant sworn out by Biff Farnham accusing Mr. Carlton of kidnapping his wife?" "Yes, ma'am." The man shifted his weight to the other foot. "I'm sorry to say it's true." She suddenly brought a hand to her forehead as if in pain. "And you intend to serve it?" "I have no choice, ma'am. I'm a law enforcement officer." There was a seemingly endless pause. The men averted their eyes. She lifted her head, quickly scanning the faces before her, and a blush appeared on her pale cheeks. "Gentlemen," her voice soft and clear, with occasional hesitation giving her words a unique power, "it is true that I am that man's wife." She looked directly at him, seemingly unaware of his attempt to appear indifferent. "According to the laws of God and society, I am his wife. I neither deny this fact, nor have I ever tried to escape the responsibilities that come with it. The vows of marriage were sacred to me when I first took them, and they remain just as sacred now. This man is fully aware of my feelings on this matter. He knows that I have remained faithful to my vows, both in spirit and in action. He knows exactly why I am not living with him, why I am supporting myself in the world, and why I am here today. I say he knows it all because it was he who abandoned me, not the other way around. His current deliberate and cowardly attempt to tarnish my reputation by harming someone else is an unbearable insult, a more serious outrage than if he had physically assaulted me. I might have forgiven the physical blow as I have done in the past, but this is beyond forgiveness if I want to maintain my self-respect. I am a woman of honor, and my reputation means more to me than life itself." She paused, breathing heavily, her head thrown back. Her hands clenched tightly as if she were desperately trying to control herself. You. The words seemed to be forced out of her lips. "There has never been a moment when I wouldn't have come to you at a single word, at the slightest indication of your desire. No matter how much I may have despised you in my innermost thoughts, I remained loyal outwardly and would have answered your call of duty. But there is no such duty now. You have openly insulted and degraded me. You have accused me before the world. You have dragged my name through the mud. You have attempted to undermine my womanhood. The past is over. It is over forever. The law may continue to hold me as your wife, but I am not your wife. The records of the church may label me as such, but they are false. A God of love could never have connected me to such a brute. The very idea is disgraceful. Don't touch me. Don't speak to me. I believe I could kill you easier than I could ever again submit to you, even a single word." She staggered as if about to collapse, her hand pressed against her chest. Before an arm could be extended for support, she had regained her composure and turned away. With her head lowered, her face obscured by her hair, she walked slowly toward the cabin. No man in the group moved until she had vanished. Then the sheriff clumsily put his hat back on, his eyes shifting uncertainly from Farnham to Carlton. "My goodness," he exclaimed, as if relieved, catching his breath quickly and wiping his forehead. "My goodness, that was intense." Remembering his own duty, he reached out and placed his hand heavily on the shoulder of the man standing next to him. It happened to be the Swede. "Go into the cabin," he ordered, his command taking on a stern tone. The bewildered man stared at him in dull confusion. "Why should I go there?" "Because you're under arrest." "What did you say? I am being arrested? Maybe you don't know who I am, huh? I'll tell you who I am real quick. I am Nell Swanson. I am Lutheran. I am a laborer." "Oh, be quiet. You're under arrest, I tell you. Now move on." "What is this under arrest? I don't understand about this arrest." The blue eyes lost their gentleness, and the drooping mustache began to bristle. "I don't know about this arrest." "What'd I do, huh? Help to kill Jack Burke," said the startled Norseman, staring at him in disbelief, his eyes bulging out of his face, his breath hissing through his clenched teeth. The wild berserker blood was pumping through his veins. "That's a lie. You can't kill me like this. No way." In a moment of insane fright, he grabbed the bewildered officer with his powerful hands, lifted him up, and threw him headfirst onto the rocks. Letting out a yell like a wild animal, he sprinted away, brushing against Carlton as he passed, leaping recklessly across the rocks, heading straight for the nearest thicket. It all happened so quickly. Farnham spun around and fired a shot at him, then, suddenly remembering his own danger, turned back to face the others, his smoking gun in hand. Amidst the chaos, Old Mike jumped onto the top of the rock wall, his face glowing with excitement. "Go for it, Swanska," he yelled encouragingly. "Go for it, you crazy guy. By the powers, it's the finest running I've seen in a while. Saints alive! Look at those legs. He's like a kangaroo, I swear, not a monkey. Go for it, Swanee, my old friend. Holy St. Patrick, he'll be out of the state before it gets dark if he keeps it up. I'm betting money on the Swede." Carlton quickly walked over to the motionless sheriff, knelt down beside him, his face filled with concern. The unfortunate man lay curled up, breathing heavily, blood flowing from 2 visible wounds on his head. The engineer turned him over, his hand searching for his pulse. Slowly the young man stood up, standing next to the body, his gray eyes locked on Farnham. This was a situation he had to decide for himself, and he had to decide now, disregarding the law and everything else. "He seems to be quite injured. Not too severe, I believe, but the man is unconscious and in no condition to be moved," he said, managing to keep his voice at an unusual calm. "I consider myself his captive, and will stay with him until he is able to travel. Farnham, I do not recognize your role as deputy, and if you try to arrest me, it will be dangerous for you. There are 4 of us here against you, but we'll give you a chance to retreat. Not a word if you want to stay alive. Leave, damn you, leave." They stood and observed him until his slender figure vanished behind the line of cedars. Then Hicks and Carlton, both silent, gently lifted the injured sheriff from the rocks and carried him back into the safety of the cabin. Chapter 23. The dire seriousness of their situation was abundantly clear. Both men acknowledged this, but had no chance at that moment to ponder the possibilities or devise a plan for relief. Without uttering a single word unrelated to their current task, the 2 immediately started tending to Hayes's needs, confident that Brown, positioned outside, would diligently protect them from any unexpected attack. The 2 wounds on the sheriff's head were visibly unpleasant, as they were both deep and jagged, and had bled profusely. However, upon careful cleansing and examination, neither proved to be particularly severe or life-threatening. In less than an hour, the injured man, still conscious but incredibly weak and starting to develop a slight fever, had been securely placed in a bed, with a promising likelihood of a swift recovery. Only after accomplishing all of this did their concerned caretakers dare to exchange thoughtful glances and acknowledge the precariousness of their own predicament. Hicks stepped outside into the sunlight, wiping the sweat from his face, and a moment later Carlton joined him, the 2 standing in solemn silence, gazing off toward the seemingly deserted Independence. The stress of the past night and day had clearly affected them both, yet it wasn't just exposure and hard work that caused such worry on their faces. Finally, Hicks turned away from his long examination and looked back at the younger man, stroking his goatee thoughtfully. "Seems to me like we've found ourselves in a really tough situation, and we're up against the real deal," he began gloomily, but quickly added in explanation, "Not that I have any intention of giving up, you understand, but I'm not exactly thrilled with the situation, and that's a fact." I've never really objected to a fair fight of any kind, whether it's a free-for-all or a stand-up. But I'm not used to going against the law in any way. And somehow that seems to be what we're facing this time. It's unbelievable how things turned out, isn't it? Carlton nodded without saying a word. He was thinking more seriously about Miss Ornish's unpleasant position than their own, but forced himself to focus. Now, this guy Farnham is a gambler and a thief. He's completely dishonest, and we have solid evidence against him for the penitentiary. But we don't have the right leverage, the old miner continued, squinting his eyes as if trying to firmly grasp the thought in his mind. He's been made a deputy sheriff. He can turn that gang of criminals over there into a posse and come over here with the full force of the law supporting them in any mischief they decide on, even killing all of us for resisting officers. As Sam Hayes said, if we shoot, we'll be shooting at Gulpin County, and yet, by golly, we absolutely have to do it, or get out of here. I just don't see any other way. Biff, he won't care at all how he gets us, so he gets us before we have any chance to turn the tables on him and shift the law to our side. Hayes can't help it all because he's out of his mind. Therefore, it's up to us. That warrant business and deputy sheriff scheme was a clever trick, for sure. It would have trapped us completely if that foolish Swede hadn't gone crazy. Not that he left us in a comfortable situation, but at least we have a fighting chance now, and before we didn't even have that. I was inclined to let you surrender to the sheriff because Sam Hayes is an honest man, but not to Farnham and his gang. No way, Marianne. That would mean lynching, and I know it. So I think we just have to tough it out and rely on luck. That's my perspective, but you're a more educated man than me, Mr. Carlton, and maybe you can see another way out. The old man sat down on a jutting rock, took out his pipe and lit it, blowing thick rings of smoke into the air with obvious enjoyment. Carlton didn't respond until the other man looked at him again questioningly. I was busy thinking, explained the engineer, but I have to admit the situation looks just as bad to me as it does to you. The silver lining of this cloud isn't visible. Of course, we're in the right, but somehow fate has put us squarely against the law. We're outlaws without having done anything to deserve it. There's only one possible way out, and that is for us to get back on the right side. Now, how can it be done? Someone will have to go down to San Juan before those guys come here in full force, swear out warrants against Farnham and his partners, and thoroughly investigate this whole situation. We have evidence against them, but only if we can get the attention of the district attorney and take this fight to court. The problem is, Farnham was clever enough to beat us to it, and he'll come out on top if we don't act quickly and stop him. I can't go myself because I'm a prisoner and must stay with the sheriff, or else I'll be seen as a fugitive. The only question is, can anyone actually hope to get through? Hicks let his gaze wander over the dark valley below, then up towards the rough summit of the towering rocks. Through the smoke of his pipe, he carefully observed Stutter Brown, perched motionless at the edge of his watchtower, a Winchester rifle standing out black against the stone. Not that way, at least, he finally declared, pointing with his pipe stem. I don't think anyone could make it through that trail tonight. Have you ever heard of Daggett Station? Carlton rubbed his chin, trying to remember the name. I'm not sure. Is it the water tank and section house, the next stop below Timmins Junction on the main line? You've got it right. Well, it's over there, he pointed seemingly into the heart of the mountain. Straight south, 20 miles as the crow flies from the base of this hill, across a barren desert that would break any man's spirit, not a drop of water from start to finish, and scorching hot. Oh, hell. He paused, deep in thought. But I doubt those people would ever think about guarding that way out, and a skilled rider could easily make it before daylight and catch the train east. How do you get down? Through a long, twisting ravine. It's a dangerous place for traveling, and you have to lead the horse until you reach the sand. Have you ever crossed there yourself? Well, no, stroking his beard. But Stutter came back that way once, from a hunt or something. He didn't say anything when he arrived, but you could have scraped alkali off him with a hoe, and he drank a whole bucket of water without taking a breath. So I don't think it was a pleasant journey. Then it must be Stutter, decided Carlton, standing up. We need to inform San Juan. I'm going inside to check on Hayes. I think that's the plan, agreed Hicks gloomily. But I don't like losing him. Stutter is a fighter once he gets riled up, and I expect some trouble here when it gets dark. It'll be Farnham's last chance to get rid of us, and he's likely to take it. I bet Stutter won't go, at least not without the girl. He's naturally stubborn, besides being in love. That's a troublesome combination. Inside the cabin, the door closed behind him, the single small window casting a faint light across the room. Carlton turned, his hand still on the doorknob, and faced Alyssa Ornish and Mercedes. Their presence there was so unexpected that the young man paused in sudden embarrassment, unable to find the right words. The two were sitting close together on crude stools beneath the window, apparently engaged in a private conversation. Alyssa, her gaze fixed on the floor, did not look up, but Mercedes locked her dark eyes with his, recognizing his confusion and quickly easing it. Kind-hearted, impulsive, already starting to understand the importance of true love, the young Mexican was eager to improve their mutual understanding. Her warm smile of welcome momentarily erased any memory of the other person's apparent indifference. "Oh, it's good that you came, sir. You see, we're trapped here like prisoners. We see nothing, hear nothing, and know nothing. Now we want you to tell us everything, the whole story. Milady here thinks it's all very bad. She's crying, tears still in her eyes, and I don't know what to say to make her feel better. She's afraid of everything, but I think most of all she's afraid for you, sir." Miss Ornish quickly placed her hand on the girl's arm in protest, her face showing seriousness in the dim light. No, Mercedes, you mustn't say too much, or Mr. Carlton will think we're both very foolish." "It wasn't foolish for us to want to know, was it, sir?" "Absolutely not." He walked across the narrow room, glanced at the sleeping sheriff's face, returned to their side, and leaned against the wall. This movement gave him confidence and self-control, and helped him decide on his future course. "What is it that you're so eager to know?" "Well, sir, everything, the whole thing." He looked directly into the other person's face, as if encouraging her to speak as well. "We don't understand the situation here at all, Mr. Carlton," she replied, her voice calm and steady. "No one has bothered to explain. We understand, of course, that it must be serious, but perhaps the tension would be less if we knew exactly what we're dealing with." The engineer nodded, pulled an empty cracker box towards himself, and sat down facing both of them. "I will tell you all the details of the circumstances, even the unpleasant ones," he began calmly. "Perhaps your quick thinking may uncover some loophole that we have missed." Clearly, yet quickly, he reviewed the main points of the dispute between Farnham and the little Yankee, his own brief involvement, the discoveries made in the lower levels of the Independence, his intense struggle with Burke, the swearing and serving of warrants, the sudden change in their legal position, the sheriff's accident, the abrupt dismissal of his deputy, and the likely consequences. His voice deepened as he continued, noting the intense interest with which they listened to his story. Then he briefly explained the relief plan they had adopted. It was the impulsive Mexican who broke the silence that followed his explanation. "Yes, I see that!" she exclaimed, leaning forward eagerly, her head in her hands. "It was a very good idea. But do you think there will be a fight soon? Do you think so? Mr. Brown thinks so? Then you don't want Mr. Brown to be away? No, you don't want to be left alone when the fight comes? He's big, strong, brave. He's better than 10 men, hey? It's true, I tell you. I'll go with the message, yes. Mr. Brown will stay here. Wouldn't that be better?" Carlton shifted uncomfortably on his makeshift seat, his gaze moving from the animated face in front of him to the other figure further back in the shadows, still serious and uncertain. "You?" he exclaimed in surprise. "Surely you don't think we would ever allow you to attempt such a thing?" "No? And why not, sir?" she said, jumping up impulsively, her eyes wide open. "Maybe you think I don't know how to ride. Maybe you think I'm afraid of the dark, or that I'll get lost. Do you think I'm a little girl?" And she snapped her fingers indignantly. "Do you think that? Of course I can do it. Goodness, it's easy. Just ride 20 miles. Bah! I've done that plenty of times. My pony takes me in 3 to 4 hours for sure. He's a nice pony and he loves Mercedes. But you don't know the way, girl, and the ride must be made at night." "Oh, come on. You're speaking very foolishly. The way? Do you think I can't find the way? Well, I'm Mexican, sir. I know the way of the desert. I read the signs here, there, everywhere, just like a lady reads a book. I know how. Yes, yes. Senor Brown showed me how to get down the side of the mountain. Then I know the rest. 20 miles south to the railway. I read the stars. I feel the wind. I give the pony a nudge, and it was done perfectly. Carlton sat silently watching her, impressed by the sincerity of her broken English, the passionate energy of her gestures. Wasn't that a better way, sir? I'm no good here. I'm just a hindrance, and when the fight comes, maybe I'll be scared. But Senor Brown won't be scared. He'll fight hard like more than 10 men. So I'll help too. I'll just ride the pony, but I'll help. I'll go to San Juan. I'll see the district attorney. She clapped her hands, laughing at the thought. Yes, I know the district attorney very well. He thinks Mercedes is a very nice girl. He thinks I dance better than anyone he's ever seen. He tells me so. He does what Mercedes wants. What she says is the right thing, for sure he does. Isn't that better, sir? Possibly, yet secretly doubting her motives. But really, you know, I always thought you were a friend of Farnham's. The girl instantly blushed deeply, her black hair reaching her roots, and she brought her hands together sharply, her eyes wandering from Carlton to Miss Ornish's suddenly uplifted face. No, no, she finally said, her voice softer. He meant nothing to me. She knows how it was. Maybe she'll tell you sometime. Not now, but sometime. I just want to do right. I want to serve Mr. Brown, not that Farnham anymore. No, no. Once, maybe, I thought that man was very nice. I thought he was a good friend. He made many promises to Mercedes. Now I think that's not true anymore. I know he lied all the time. I see things as they were right, and I try to be a good girl. Do you understand all that, sir? I understand some of it at least. And he smiled back into her pleading eyes. Enough to trust you. If Hicks and Brown agree, your departure will be acceptable to me. Great. And she gave him a deep Spanish courtesy, performing a quick dancing step toward the door. Then it will be so. I'm not afraid. I'll go see both of them. Goodbye. The door opened, and she swiftly moved into the fading sunlight. It closed behind her, leaving the two alone in the shadows. Chapter 24. Carlton sat staring at her face, which was slightly turned away from him, her long, silky lashes casting shadows over her lowered eyes. A single glimmer of the setting sun illuminated her dark hair, gently swaying in the breeze coming through the open window. In the quiet, he could hear his heart pounding and faintly make out the sound of her breath. She was the first to speak, without moving her head. "Are you really under arrest?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Technically, yes. However, as you can see, the sheriff is unable to prevent me from escaping if I wanted to try," he replied. "Is it because of the accusation he made?" He stood up, trying to control himself. "Oh, no, definitely not. I believe that was just a threat, a cowardly threat, completely unprovoked and purposeless, unless he intended to harm you in some way. The actual charge against me is murder. It seems that the man I fought with in the mine later died from his injuries." She turned both face and body toward him, her eyes filled with agony. "The man died? Will it be possible for you to prove yourself innocent?" "It may be possible, but it does not appear easy. I hope to show that all I did was in self-defense. I did not strike the man a deadly blow. In the struggle he fell and was injured on the sharp rocks. In every sense his death was unintentional, yet there is nothing to sustain me but my own testimony. But I shall not flee from the issue. If I have taken human life, I will abide the judgment. God knows I never dreamed of killing the man, never once supposed him seriously injured. You at least believe this?" "I believe all you tell me." The man's grip on the frame of the window tightened, his eyes upon the mass of black hair. "Interestingly enough," he continued, "this whole affair has gone wrong from the start. Nothing has turned out in the natural way. Criminals have been made into officers of the law, and honest men changed into outlaws. Now it seems impossible to guess how the adventure will end." She sat looking up at him, barely seeing his face, her hands clasped in her lap. "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players," she said. quoting the familiar words as if in a dream. We are such puppets in the great play. How strange it all is, how dangerously close real life is, always skirting the edge of tragedy. Plans fail, lines tangle, and lives are changed forever by events seemingly insignificant. Tomorrow is always a mystery. I wonder, is it not a faint awareness of this that makes the stage so attractive to the masses? Even its comedies, its sensational dramas, are never completely beyond the realm of possibility. Everywhere are found stranger stories than any storyteller can invent, and yet we sometimes label our lives as ordinary. She leaned back against the wall, a sob entering her voice. What is going to be the outcome of this for me? Whatever you want, he exclaimed passionately, forgetting everything except her control over him. It is you who must choose. Yes, it is I who must choose. Her face still lifted. Because I am not a leaf to drift on the air, my destiny decided by a breath of wind I must choose. Yet how can I know I choose correctly? When heart and conscience are in opposition, any decision means sacrifice and pain. I meant those hasty words forced out of me in shame and spoken over there. I meant them then, and yet they haunt me like so many ghostly apparitions. It is not their falsehood, but the thought will not go away that the real cause of their utterance was not the harm done to me. It had another origin. In what? She did not hesitate at all to answer, her eyes clear and honest on his own. In my love for you, she answered calmly, her cheeks reddening at the sincere confession. He grasped her hands, pulling her without resistance toward him. You admit this to me? Yes, to you. But to you only because I trust you. Because I know you as an honorable man, she said, speaking with a genuine simplicity that was impossible to resist. I am not ashamed of the truth, not afraid to acknowledge it openly. If there is wrongdoing in this, that wrongdoing has already been done. The mere expression of it cannot harm either of us. We understand the reality without words. I love you. With all my heart I love you. I can say this to you here in the quiet, yet I could not say it openly before the world. Why? Because such love is incorrect? Under God, I don't know. Only the world would misunderstand, would question my motives, would misjudge my faith. By the code, I am not the master of my heart. It has been legally surrendered. But you won't misjudge or question. If I couldn't trust, I couldn't love you. I do both. Now and here I put my hands in yours. I place my life, my conscience in your keeping. For good or evil, for heaven or hell, I yield to you my faith. Tell me what I am utterly unable to decide for myself alone. What is my duty? The duty of a woman situated as I am. He held her hands still, crushing them within his own. Yet the color, the hope which had brightened his face, faded. A moment the two sat silent, their eyes meeting, searching the depths. Alyssa, he asked at last, is this right? Is what right? That you should burden me like this. I told you I couldn't be your conscience. All my desire, all my hope tends in one direction. That which to you appears wrong, to me seems the only right course. My heart responded eagerly to every word of renunciation spoken out there in your indignation. They were just and true. They gave me courage to believe the battle was over, that in soul and heart you were finally free. She lowered her eyes in confusion to the floor, her chest rising and falling with quick breathing. And now you find me hesitating, undecided, she whispered, her lips trembling. I know I am. There are moments when I hold myself unworthy of love. Yet believe me, I am honest, sincere, unselfish in all my thoughts regarding you. Perhaps the problem is that I know myself, my nature, too well. I dare not trust it to bring you happiness unless I can come to you with a clear conscience. Is it the thought of divorce that still remains so repugnant? She looked up into his questioning face, her own cheeks blushing. I recoil from it in actual pain, she confessed with immediate honesty. My whole being revolts. Believe me, I am not blind, not insensitive. I acknowledge the truth of everything you would tell me about the inherent rights of womanhood. Neglect, mistrust, brutality, and open insults have all been my portion. People all over the world accept these as valid reasons for breaking their marriage vows. But can I? Can I, who have always condemned those others for doing so? Can I, who have always believed that sacrament to be sacred and enduring? And I realize that the temptation has not arisen solely because of the wrongs done to me. He has been all of this before, many, many times, yet I have remained faithful and loyal, never questioning my duty. It is the birth of a new love, God alone knows if I should call it a guilty love, that has changed me like this, that has brought dreams of liberation to my mind. I implore you, please try to understand me. How could happiness ever be my lot, or yours through me, while these doubts continue to haunt my soul like ghosts? He let go of her clinging hands, turning away from her, his eyes staring blankly out of the window. For a moment she continued to look at him, her dry eyes anxiously pleading. Then she buried her face in her hands and waited, her whole body trembling. Twice Carlton tried to speak before he mustered enough courage to turn back and gaze down at her bowed figure. "Alyssa," he finally said, his struggle evident in his voice. "I would not be deserving of the love you have given me so completely if I were to stoop to abusing it now. I could never forgive myself if I were to encourage you to do something that your conscience clearly condemns. To me, there is a marriage that is more sacred and lasting than any witnessed by humans or formalized through a ceremony. It is the secret union of hearts. We are united in this, and nothing can ever come between us. So let everything else wait. Let it wait until God opens a path for us to walk honorably. Mutual sacrifice will never make us any less dear to each other. This situation may temporarily separate us, but I believe that a way will open up, and you will come to understand your duty from a broader perspective, one that allows you to find happiness in true love, free from any memories of falsehood." She slowly stood up, tears clinging to her eyelashes with both hands outstretched. "Oh, thank you, I thank you," she exclaimed with deep passion. "Those words prove that you are everything I have always believed you to be. They give me hope, courage, and patience to stay true to myself, true to my lifelong ideals of womanhood. I am certain that you trust me, understand my motives, and will not think any less of me because I am unwilling to give up my sense of what is right. He means absolutely nothing to me. Nothing. He never could. There are times when I feel that even his death would not adequately make up for the harm he has caused me. His influence will never touch my life again and change its purpose. It is not him who keeps us apart. It is a solemn, sacred promise I made in front of God as a trusting young girl, a promise I cannot forget, cannot break without losing my self-respect and honor." He gently pulled her towards him, his eyes no longer filled with desire, but still containing a profound love that made her unable to resist his intentions. "Alyssa, darling," he whispered, his lips almost touching her cheek. "I won't think about him, but only about you. If you love me, I am satisfied. Just knowing it brings me happiness. Tell me once more that this is true." "It is true, always true. I love you. Can I have the assurance of your lips this one time?" For a brief moment she seemed to hesitate, her cheeks turning red, her eyes lowered. But then she lifted her face, and their lips met and clung, as if they would never part. In the gathering shadows he led her back to the empty seat and stood beside her, gently stroking her soft dark hair. "Do you have plans?" he asked quietly. "Have you decided how you will live while we wait for each other?" "Yes," she replied somewhat timidly, as if afraid he might object to her decision. "I think I should go back to my work on the stage. You don't mind, do you? It seems like the best fit for me. I have a desire to succeed, and it gives me something meaningful to focus on. I remember you once said that true love shouldn't interfere with someone's ideals." "Yes, I remember. It feels like such a long time ago, and my understanding of the power of love has changed so much since then. I still believe it, but in a completely different way. Now I would gladly give up all ambition and dreams of worldly success just to be alone with the man I love and make him happy. That's all I want. It's everything. And someday, it will be yours," he declared confidently. "One day when you realize that divorce is not always the evil that some people like to proclaim it as. One day when you understand that it is a far greater sin to irreparably ruin your own life for a brute than to break those man-made bonds that tie you to him. It won't be long until you grasp this, as nature itself condemns such an unholy alliance. Until then, let it be known that I only ask you to strive for the very best that life has to offer. Believe in yourself, young lady, in your abilities, your power, and your spark of genius that has been touched by suffering. Every hour you spend now in this hideous, distorted melodrama is worse than wasted. You have something within you that deserves a better stage, a nobler environment, and it is wrong for you to be content with less. You belong to me now, no matter where you go or whatever triumphs you achieve. You belong to me despite the law, because I possess your heart. I would sooner doubt myself than ever question your loyalty. I can lend you to the stage for a while until the joyful moment when your lips bid me farewell. But in the meantime, I want you to stay true to yourself and the artistic spirit within you. I want you to fulfill the highest aspirations of your dreams, to interpret in life that which is worth interpreting. Do you believe I can? She asked. I know you can. From that very first night when I stood in the wings watching you, I have never doubted the potential of your future. You possess art, emotion, depth of true feeling, dedication, and a clear understanding of character, all the qualities that have made any great actress. I love you, Alyssa. However, my love is too selfless not to tell you this truth and step aside rather than hinder your future. She looked up at him, her tears now gone, and her eyes shining with eagerness. I will do everything you say, she said sincerely, because I love you. It won't be for the people, the applause, the glamour and showiness, but solely for you. Whenever I achieve success, I will embrace it while whispering your name in my heart, knowing that you are pleased because I am proving myself worthy of your trust. It will be as if we are working together. The memories must contribute to our strength. He leaned down, pulling her closer to him, and held her in silence. Yes, he finally spoke, as if lost in thought. I will try to remember and be patient, as long as you believe it is necessary. They were still sitting there with a faint hint of twilight illuminating the window above, their hands clasped, when Mercedes returned, brimming with joy. Yes, I did it, she happily announced, dancing into the middle of the dim room, seemingly unaware of the two in front of her. It's me who gets to ride. Excellent. It will be so much fun. Mr. Brown didn't want to let me go. He thought I was doing it all for him. Oh, the arrogance of men, when all I care about is having a good time. But I talked to him for a while, and Bill talked too, and maybe he said yes just to get rid of us. Don't you think that's what happened, sir? Chapter 25. The feared night descended, dark and clear, with countless stars shining brightly in the vast sky above, and the dark shadows hanging ominously along the ridge lined with trees. Nature, quieted into sleep, seemed to be the only presence, as the calm silence of the peaceful night covered the immense canyon and the mountains looming overhead. In the deepening darkness, all living creatures appeared to have sought rest and found shelter. The final view that the vigilant protectors of the Little Yankee caught of the vicinity of the Independence did not reveal anything to cause immediate concern. A few men casually came and went around the mine building and ore dump, but otherwise the entire claim seemed abandoned. No hostile display of any kind had been attempted since Farnham's retreat, and now there was no sign of an anticipated attack. The large number of men that were visible earlier in the day had mysteriously vanished. Not even the searching binoculars revealed their whereabouts. In the gathering darkness, there were no lights indicating any activity. Everywhere remained dark and quiet. To the tired men on guard, this secrecy seemed ominous, suggesting an impending danger. They fully understood the vengeful nature of their enemy and were not easily lulled into a false sense of security. Such sneaking around could only be interpreted as a sign of treachery, a well-planned surprise. But what was the plan? In his desperation and eagerness to cover up any evidence of wrongdoing, would Farnham resort to strategy or force? Would he use the law, which he now had firmly on his side, or would he rely solely on the large number of followers he commanded for a more certain and quicker victory? The defenders of the Little Yankee knew from observation that he had enough men at his disposal. These were the type of men for whom fighting was a profession. They must still be hiding somewhere in the thick brush, as none of them had retreated down the trail. Backed by the authority of the law and convinced that they had nothing to fear legally, as they were merely carrying out court orders, they would hardly hesitate to commit any atrocity under such a leader. But where would they strike, and how? What could be the reason for their delay? What was their objective in remaining so secretive? There had to be both a motive and a purpose, but all they could do was wait for it to be revealed. A misty haze covered the canyon, stretching from one side to the other. In the starlit night, it resembled a restless, silent expanse of gray ocean. A stray breeze blew through the ravine, causing the numerous ghostly trees outlined against the brighter sky to sway their branches, the leaves rustling as if swept by rain. There was a faint moaning among the distant rocks, as if hidden caves were filled with playful spirits. It was eerie, lonely, desolate, with strained eyes seeing the same scene of abandoned wilderness everywhere. Old Hicks lay flat under the protection of the ore dump, his ear pressed close to the ground, his narrowed eyes anxiously searching those dark hollows ahead. A Winchester rifle, cocked and ready, within his reach. Above, Irish Mike, sniffing the air as if he could smell danger like a hunting dog, leaned far out across the rock ledge, every eager nerve tingling in anticipation of an impending battle. Carlton stood in the cabin doorway, behind him the open room dark and silent, his loaded Winchester rifle between his feet, bravely trying to overcome a vague sense of impending trouble, yet alert and prepared to do his part. It was then that Stutter Brown led the saddled pony forward from the hiding place of bushes. The long-awaited moment for action had arrived. At his whispered command, Mercedes promptly emerged from the shadowed doorway and lovingly pressed her face against the pony's upturned nose. "Look," she whispered, patting Brown's muscular arm while playfully toying with the silky mane. "He knows me. He loves me. He's better than any man, because he never tells lies. Never, and he's always nice. He'll ride me until he drops dead, fast, quick, like a bird in flight. So I'll be fine, sir. You'll see when daylight comes, I'll be in San Juan. Then I'll have a lot of fun for Mr. Farnham, I'm sure I will." I reckon you'll make it all right, little girl," answered the man regretfully, his voice lowered to a low growl. "But just the same, I ain't so darn glad to let you go." "Hell, no way I would either if I didn't think the toughest part of it was going to be right here." She glanced almost shyly up into his shadowed face, her black eyes like stars. "That's it. I was the coward. I just ran away so scared of the fight. I don't like the fight one bit. But I know you, dude. You want to stay here and have a good time. You're American and you like that a lot. I felt your big arm like this. And I know it's better for you to be here. I really want to please you, man." He clasped her hand where it rested small and white against his sleeve, hiding it completely within his own big fist. When he spoke, she could sense the tremble in the deep voice. "You're a damn fine girl," he managed to say simply. "But we gotta go now. I reckon you'd better walk for a while, as the pony will step lighter." "I don't care, dude," softly. "It'll be nice to walk. I'm never afraid with you." Brown led the way forward cautiously across the open space, one strong hand firm on the pony's rein, the other barely touching her dress as though it were something sacred. She tried to make out his face in the faint starlight, but the low-drawn hat brim shaded it into black lines, revealing nothing. The easy, casual words she wanted to say, hoping to keep him from getting too serious, wouldn't come to her lips. There was so much silence and mystery all around, so much doubt in this adventure, that despite her cheerful demeanor, every nerve tingled with excitement. Glancing up at him, she bit her lips in embarrassment. It was Stutter who finally found his voice, his mind going back to what she had said earlier in a nonchalant manner. "You said that the pony never lied like a man," he began uncertainly. "You didn't mean that for me, did you?" There was something so deeply sad about the way he asked this that it hurt her, and the slender fingers still holding onto his sleeve tightened. "Sir, you must not say that. You must not think that. No, no, I said that only in jest, sir. Never did I believe that, never. You are a good man, even better than Mercedes. She is not worth a little bit of the love you speak to her, but she feels much shame to have you think that she meant you when she said such things in jest." He stopped suddenly, completely forgetting about their surroundings, the potential danger they were in, as it vanished from his mind. He only saw that girl's face looking up at him in the starlight, so beautiful and pleading. He only heard that gentle voice confessing her unworthiness, her sorrow. He stood tall above her, a great, broad-shouldered figure, yet his voice trembled like that of a scared child. "And please don't say that anymore," he stammered awkwardly. "Somehow it hurts. Lord, you don't have to be so darn good to be on my level. They don't breed any angels back in old Missouri where I come from. It's mostly stubborn mules there, and I reckon we all get a bit stubborn and ornery. But I suppose I'm decent enough to know the right kind of girl when I come across her. So I don't want to hear any more about you not being good. You're certainly good enough for me, and that's all there is to it. Now you won't say that anymore, will you?" "No, sir," she simply answered. "I won't say that anymore." He stood before her, shifting uncomfortably from one foot to the other, a large figure in the darkness. "Mercedes," he managed to say finally, "you're going to ride away, and maybe there will be a huge fight up here before the rest of us get out of this mess. I don't think it'll be me who will get hurt, but somehow I'd feel a lot better if you would just say those words that I asked you to before you go, little girl. I really wish you would." She put her hands to her face, and then hid it against the pony's neck, her slight form trembling violently beneath the touch of his fingers. The strange actions of the girl, her continued silence, half frightened him. "Maybe you're not ready yet," he questioned, his manner full of apology. "Oh, sir, I cannot say that for sure, I cannot," she sobbed, her face still hidden. "Maybe I'll say so sometime when I know it better how it ought to be. Yes, maybe so. But not now. I don't think it's just right to say it now. I'm not angry, no, no. I'm very glad you think so highly of Mercedes. It brings me much joy. I'm not crying because of that, sir. I cry for other things. Maybe you'll know sometime and be very sorry with me. But I won't cry any more. See, I stand up straight and look you in the face this way." She drew her hand swiftly across her eyes. "There, the tears are all gone. Now I'm brave. Now I'm not afraid. You don't ask me that now. Not now. Tomorrow, next week, maybe I'll know better how to say the truth that was in my heart. Maybe I'll know then. Now it's all jumbled up. I think I know, but the words don't come out like I want them to." He turned silently away from her, leading the pony forward, his head bent low, his shoulders stooped. There was a dejection apparent about the action which her eyes could not mistake. She touched him pleadingly. "You're not very angry, Mercedes, sir?" Brown half turned around and rested one big hand upon her soft hair in a silent caress. "No, little girl, it's not that," he admitted slowly. "Only I'm darned if I just exactly understand your style. I think I'll understand what you mean sometime." Could he have seen clearly, he might have noticed the swift, hot tears filling her eyes. But he never imagined they were present, as her lips were smiling. "Maybe so, sir. Maybe. I'm glad you're not angry because I don't like that. It was nice to deceive you. That's what made the men love me when they didn't know everything. When they find out, maybe it will all be over. So maybe I'll show you sometime. Maybe not. Who knows?" If her casually spoken words hurt, he realized the complete pointlessness of trying to understand their deeper meaning at that moment. They moved forward slowly, pressing closer against the large ridge of rocks where the darker shadows clung. The man's natural caution became evident as his mind returned to considering the dangerous mission they were on. Tomorrow would free him from all this, but for now he had to safely guide her to the mist-covered plain below. They had advanced for about 12 yards, the obedient pony stepping silently like them, Mercedes a few feet behind, when Brown suddenly stopped, staring intensely at something slightly to the side of their path. There, like a huge menacing eye glaring angrily at him, was a dull red glow. For a moment he doubted and wondered. his mind confused. Tiny sparks fizzled out into the darkness, and the miner understood. He had accidentally stumbled upon a lit fuse, a trail of destruction leading to some evil act. With a curse, he leaped forward recklessly, stomping out the creeping flame beneath his feet, crushing it lifeless between his heavy boots and the rock. There was an enraged shout, the swift rush of footsteps, the red flash of a rifle cutting through the night with a burst of flame. In the sudden otherworldly glow, Brown caught a faint glimpse of faces, of numerous dark figures leaping towards him, but he simply crouched low. The girl. He had to protect the girl. That was all he knew, all he cared about, except for an intense hatred sparked by one of those faces he had just seen. They were coming at him in a group, attacking with the ferocity of wild animals. His gun got stuck in its holster, but he fought back with his fists, throwing punches at the dark figures, gritting his teeth, every instinct urging him to fight until the end. They knocked him down to his knees once, but he fought his way up, shaking off their grip and pushing them away like children. He was consumed by a battle frenzy, his blood boiling, every muscle strained to the maximum. He was oblivious to everything except those dim figures in front of him. Unaware of the blood trickling down his shirt, unaware of his own injuries, he lunged forward like a complete maniac, snatching a rifle from an opponent's helpless hands and striking out to the right and left with the deadly metal bar spinning through the air. He hit once, twice. He saw bodies spin sideways and collapse to the ground. Then suddenly he felt alone, breathing heavily, holding the shattered rifle stock up for another blow. "It's the big guy!" shouted a voice to his left. "Why don't you idiots shoot?" He jumped back, crouching lower, his only goal to draw their fire and shield her, hidden among the shadows of the rocks. He felt nothing but disdain for those men, but he couldn't let them harm her. He stood up in the bright starlight, shielding his eyes to try and see. Someone yelled, "There he is, damn him!" A slender figure darted across the open space like a faint vision of the night. A red flame burst from the darkness. The two figures stood out against the brightness, staggered back as it faded, and fell together into the darkness. Chapter 26. Sprinting aimlessly through the darkness in the direction of the commotion, Hicks and Carlton appeared. They caught only faint glimpses of scattering, fleeing figures, but immediately opened fire, barely understanding yet what it all meant. Hicks, rushing recklessly forward, tripped over a person lying down in the darkness, and the two hesitated, unsure of where the enemy had gone. Then, Stutter Brown struggled slowly to his knees, still tightly holding the slender figure of the injured girl in his arms. She didn't move or make a sound, but under the starlight her eyes were wide open, shining brightly against her unusually pale cheeks. Her breath was short and sharp, as if in pain, yet her lips smiled up at him. "Oh, my God," he sobbed. "It was you." "Yes, sir," the words faltered out, almost mocking his own hesitant speech. "Once I said maybe I would show you. I didn't know how then, but now I know." "Show me, little girl, in God's name. Show me what?" "If it was true that I love you, sir. Now you think it is. Now you always know what was in Mercedes' heart. This is better than talking, sir. Never doubt again." He could only continue to look at her, the intense agony in his eyes beyond any words, his words caught in his throat. She lifted one hand weakly, gently touching his cheek with her pale fingers. "Oh, please don't, sir. It hurts me so much to see you feel that bad. It really does. It wasn't the bullets that hurt, no. I know they wouldn't have reached you if they hit me first. It brings me joy to do that, it really does. Little girl," he stammered helplessly, his large hands trembling as he touched her. "It was you I tried to save. I ran this way so they wouldn't shoot at you." She smiled happily at him, gently stroking his hair, even though her face twitched from pain. "Sure, I know, sir. You're brave, a good man. Maybe now you'll always think I'm brave and good, too. That's enough for me, Mercedes. Oh, this is the better way, the great God knows. Surely he knows. Now, sir, I am yours always, forever. I'm so happy to be loved by a good man. I just look into your face, sir, and think, he loves me. He asks me to marry him. Maybe I would never do that, for fear he'll get tired, for fear he'll hear unpleasant things about Mercedes. That would make me sad, make me ashamed in front of him. Yes, I know how it would be. I know the Americans. They're very proud of their wives. They fight for their honor. So it makes me very afraid. I'm not worth it. No, no. I didn't know the better way back then. But the good Mother of God showed me. She told me what to do, to run quickly. I'll die for the man I love, and then he'll always know that I love him. He'll know better than if I marry him. Yes, yes. It was all joy for Mercedes now, my sir. It doesn't hurt. It makes me glad to know. Brown bent even lower as he listened, his large body shaking as he tried to hold back his sobs, his lips pressing against her pale cheek. "I'll kiss you now, sir," she whispered weakly. "Just once, as if I were your wife." Their lips met, their very souls seemingly merging in the soft, tender connection. Suddenly the poor girl fell back, her head landing heavily on his supporting arm, a strange shudder running through her slender body. "Mercedes!" he cried in alarm. "Yes, sir." Her black eyes still wide open, but her words barely audible. "It's really difficult to see you. Maybe the stars hide behind the clouds, but I love you." "Yes, yes, I know." She lifted her arms, then dropped them heavily on his stooped shoulders. "There is such a brightness coming, sir. It lights everything up like it's daytime. Maybe I will be good too, now that a good man loves me. Maybe God will forgive all the bad because I love. Do you think so? Oh, it brings me so much joy, sir." "Sir." Motionless, almost breathless, except for the sobs shaking his large frame, he held her tightly, bending low, her pale cheek against his own, her head resting on his arm. Around them was silence, the solemn shadows of the night, with Hicks and Carlton watching intently. Finally the latter spoke gently, trying to awaken the man, but Stutter Brown never lifted his head, never took his eyes off the lifeless white face supported by his arm. As if turned to stone, he remained motionless, seemingly lifeless, his face as pale as the deceased he guarded. Hicks leaned over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stutter, old friend," he said pleadingly. "I know it's very hard, but don't grieve like this. Don't act that way. It can't do her any good now. It's all over, and you're not helping her by sitting there like that." The devastated man took a deep breath, looking up at the kind, weathered face leaning over him, and at the darkness surrounding them. He acted as if suddenly awakened from sleep, unable to comprehend his situation. Slowly, with all the tenderness of love, he crumpled his old hat into a makeshift pillow, placed it on the rock, and gently lowered the girl's head until it rested softly on it. He softly brushed his large hand across her disheveled black hair, pushing it back from her forehead. He got up onto his knees, then onto his feet, swaying slightly. One hand pressed against his head as he stared blankly into the faces of the two men. "Which way did he go?" he asked, sounding almost dumb. "The guy who told them to fire?" Old Hicks, his eyes filled with misery, shook his head. "Back to the Independence, I guess," he admitted. "Most of them I saw went that way." Brown roughly pulled his gun out of its holster, holding the shiny weapon up into the starlight. "No, he didn't, not that one," he growled fiercely, his gaze falling again on the upturned features of the dead girl. "I saw him out there running toward our mine entrance. He's up to more mischief. You take care of her." His voice broke, then rang out strong. "By God, I'll get the murderer." He pushed past the two men, shouldering them aside as if he didn't see them, and with the leap of a tiger disappeared into the night. Each man caught a glimpse of his face, drawn, white, every line showing savagery, and shrank back from the memory. It was as if they had seen something too terrible to comprehend. For a moment they stared after him, gripping their rifles as if in a state of terror. Hicks was the first to find words. "He's gone crazy. God have mercy on him, he's gone crazy." Carlton pulled himself together quickly, one hand gripping the other's arm. "Then let him handle it," he said. "Whoever did this deserves to be punished. Let's do what he told us to do and take care of the body of this poor girl." They turned back, dreading their task, moving as if they were still half dazed. As they approached, A dark figure just beyond suddenly got onto its knees and began crawling away. With a leap, Hicks managed to grab hold of the guy and threw him on his back, facing upwards to the stars. With a gun to his head, he held the man down, staring at the revealed features in clear astonishment. "Damn me," he exclaimed, a new sense of surprise in his voice. "Carlton, look here." "What is it?" And the younger man stepped forward, his rifle prepared. "Isn't that Burke? Isn't that the same guy they had you arrested for murdering?" The helpless man lying on the ground scowled fiercely up at them, a dirty bandage wrapped around his head giving him a terrifying, unnatural look. For a long moment the startled engineer stared down at him in disbelief, unable to clearly discern the features, his own heart pounding rapidly in suspense. "I somewhat believe it is. Are you Jack Burke?" The man attempted a smile, but there was little amusement in the result. "I think it's likely you're as likely as anyone to know. You're the guy who hit me in the head, but that other devil is the one who broke my arm. Let me up from here. By golly, I've had enough fighting for one time." "Did you know I had been arrested for killing you?" Burke grinned, this time genuinely. "I didn't have a clue about it. Farnham told me to keep quiet in the bunkhouse, out of sight. But when they needed someone to set off this fuse, it seems I was the only one who could do the job, so they brought me out here with them. I've got a busted head and a broken arm as my share of the fun. By the powers now, let me get up." The two men, observing him closely, exchanged glances. "All right, Burke," and Carlton raised his rifle suggestively. "You can get up. Just stay close to us with no tricks. I want you, and I want you badly. If you try anything, there will be a dead Irishman this time for sure. Is that you, Mike?" "Indeed, sir." "Good. You've arrived just in time. Keep your gun aimed at this local guy, and if he does anything suspicious, shoot him, got it?" "You bet I do, sir. Step out there, Burke, your skinny boss of Swades, or I'll show you what a decent Irishman and O'Brien, by golly, thinks of someone like you. I definitely will." With compassionate kindness, and as gently as possible, their eyes teary and everything else forgotten except their sad task, Hicks and Carlton knelt on the hard rock and lifted the slender figure of Mercedes in their arms. Slowly, without saying a word, the small group turned in the darkness and moved towards the cabin, carrying the silent burden. They walked with their heads down and careful steps, their hearts heavy. With a faint neigh, the girl's abandoned pony trotted forward from the shadow where it had been left, sniffed at her trailing skirt with its stretched-out nose, and followed behind, walking with its head bowed almost to the ground, as if it also understood and mourned. Carlton glanced back at the animal, amazed, quickly wiping away a tear from his own eye, but his lips remained firm and unyielding. He had no doubt about who Brown was searching for in the dark night. When they met, it would be a fight to the death. In front of the still open door of the cabin, they silently lowered their burden in the shadow of the building. For a moment they stood there, listening intently for any sound coming from the surrounding night. Then Carlton, taking on the responsibility, reluctantly stepped forward, trying to see inside. His heart pounded with the pain of the sudden news of death he brought. "Alyssa," he called, seeing no movement inside and forcing his voice to remain calm. "Miss Ornish." There was a slight movement near the far wall, but it was the wounded sheriff's voice that responded. "Who are you? What was all that shooting just now?" "Damn if I ain't too weak to get up. But I got a gun here, and I reckon I can pull the trigger." "It's Carlton and Hicks. We've had a skirmish out beyond the landfill. Those guys tried to blow up our mine entrance, and we caught them in the act. Is Miss Ornish here?" "No, I reckon not. She was sitting here talking to me when that shooting started, and then she ran out the door over there. Anybody get hurt?" "The little Mexican girl was killed. We have brought her body here." "Good God!" "And we've also got a prisoner, Sheriff. It's that same Jack Burke you arrested me for killing. He seems very much alive." There was a rustling back in the darkness, as if the man within was trying to sit up. Then he swore angrily, pounding his fist into the side of the bed as if trying to vent his emotions. "Burke!" he finally exploded, his anger seeming to choke him. "Jack Burke! Hell, is that true? Oh, Lord, but I wish I could get out of here. That damn Farnham swore out that warrant down in San Juan, that blamed, despicable jerk. It was a low-down, sneaky trick, and he actually had the audacity to use me to carry out his plan for him. Lord, if ever I get my hands on him, I'll make sure he pays. No one answered him, everyone's thoughts turning solemnly to the motionless, silent dead outside. Bareheaded, the two men, searching through the darkness, carried Mercedes inside with utmost care and placed her delicate body on the bed, covering it with a single sheet. Hicks remained still, leaning over her, the compassionate darkness concealing the tears welling in his old eyes and the trembling of his lips as he attempted, for the first time in years, to pray. But Carlton immediately turned and walked toward Hayes, his heart already filled with renewed worry. Where did she go, do you know? Who? The young actress woman. I couldn't see exactly, only she went outside. I thought I heard voices talking out there later on, over towards the window, but maybe I imagined it. Darn this old head of mine. It keeps spinning every time I move, like it was all wheels. The engineer, his face pale with determination, walked to the door.